Hello, and welcome to our starter recommendations for the Necropolis League. The new update alters the endgame in a major way, but the bar has not been pushed higher. Deep Delve, Uber bosses, and Valdo maps are still the most challenging encounters, although the new Tier 17 maps will fill the gap between regular and aspirational content. The fundamentals of the mapping system received a significant change. The sextants no longer exist, and a wide variety of new scarabs took their place. The Atlas tree has also been reworked. Most iconic and strategy-defining keystones were replaced by exciting new ones. What is most important is that you will now be able to freely swap between 3 Atlas tree setups, so you don't have to worry about orbs of unmaking in the early progression. The Necropolis League itself is a crafting one, so creating your own items will be encouraged. It should flood the market with good gear pieces, especially for the flavor of the month builds. The full list of League-specific modifiers you can dig up is yet to be unearthed, so it's hard to say which will outperform other. The removal of charms and tinctures will be definitely noticeable to everyone. Combined with the inability to opt out of the League content, we firmly suggest picking a strong build you're familiar with, as this may be a struggle for many. With that being said, let's explore our recommended builds for the upcoming Necropolis League. Our first recommendation is the cheap Ignite build for an Elementalist. With Shaper of Flames and its Ignite Conflux, any damage type will contribute toward the final damage of your Ignite, although the fire portion should be the highest. It just so happens that Wave of Conviction has plenty of its physical damage converted to fire, and automatically applies the fire exposure. Since it is a physical-based spell, you can easily fit in the Obliteration Wand to get amazing chain explosions without losing too much single target damage. Elementalist's proficiency in applying powerful elemental ailments and reducing the resistance of your enemies will aid you immensely during the early stages, although the single target damage won't be impressive without investments. You can also easily make minor adjustments to fit in different skills, such as the new Incinerate of Expanse. The Whispering Ice is a 1C unique staff grading you the Icestorm skill, which is very similar to the old Firestorm. The damage of this spell is based on your intelligence, requiring you to stack this attribute, and while it is true that such builds are endgame oriented and can be very expensive, you can achieve reasonable damage even on a budget with the intelligence sourced from the passive skill tree and cheap unique items like Astromentus. There is also no need to link up sockets in the staff, saving you a lot of trouble. It is recommended to use a weapon swap feature to have a separate setup for clearing and boss fights. The intelligence attribute also improves energy shield, so we recommend choosing Trickster with a Soul Drinker for a constant energy shield leech. With this superb sustain and vast effective health pool, the character is very sturdy and has the potential to scale up into the endgame. The downside of this build is poor clear speed due to the delayed damage profile of the Icestorm. This position is probably the strongest on the list, and we are surprised this interaction didn't receive a nerf. The original vision of this skill is to slowly accumulate 10 blade vortexes and detonate them via blade blast of unloading for an insane amount of damage. However, if you use Arcanist brands and brand recall, you will generate your blades at a much faster rate than intended. The new automation gem will greatly help with the brand recall usage, but you will still have to constantly resummon your brands. If you don't mind that playstyle, you will end up with a great damage and clear speed. The final variant aims for the usual power stacking setup, but as you can see on the showcase, you can achieve great success with just simple rare items with bonuses to spell damage, critical strikes, and gem levels. Without the Forbidden Flame combo, generating blades against bosses takes twice as long, but it is still very fast. It is a great pick if you want to fully invest in your first and only character of the league, as it has great endgame potential. The Pathfinder is the most popular ascendancy for any poison builds out there, rightfully so. It offers you a lot of damage, superb life recovery, and permanent flasks that can boost your defense and movement speed. You simply can't go wrong when you pick this ascendancy. The Poisonous Concoction is an exceptionally good skill to league start with. It is an attack skill but scales with gem levels as most spells do. And it is the default recommendation for easy leveling with most ranger builds, even those that do not specialize in poison in the end. It is very powerful, but if you find yourself not enjoying this playstyle, you can very easily transition into any other Pathfinder poison setup, as they often share most of the passive tree choices. It is also possible that the new transfigured variant of this skill somehow turns out to be great, however, it is impossible to judge it without properly testing it in the game. The Holy Relic is not your typical minion skill. The Relic releases a Holy Nova only when you strike any enemy with a melee attack, leading to a much more interactive gameplay style. With a very cheap unique helmet, you can summon an additional Relic, which is basically the only gear requirement this build has. Most of the time you will spin around with the Cyclone, followed closely by your relics. The new Necromancer notable that grants you life leech from your minions' damage paired with capped block chance will render you very durable. The new transfigured variant looks very promising for this build. It removes the life regeneration buff, but you can summon one more relic, for a total of 3. The change to the Unholy Might buff is probably not that useful for this setup. The usual physical damage variant seems like the best option at this moment. If anything changes in that regard, we will keep you updated. The Boneshatter continues to be one of the best melee skills. It's a type of build that has to be tanky to deal any significant damage. Its physical damage mitigation and life recovery are especially relevant. Being able to improve your DPS simply by investing in survivability elevates it when compared to similar builds. Thanks to the built-in Shockwave effect, you don't need to worry about clear speed either. If you have this opportunity, you could go for the Boneshatter of Complex Trauma first and then switch to the regular Boneshatter. The way this setup is built makes it also a great pick to farm Labyrinth, which might be very profitable during those early days, as all kinds of the transfigured gems will be highly sought after. Unfortunately, the automation support won't be able to trigger multiple Warcries, which would be a huge buff for all melee builds, and you still have to use ancestral totems to maximize your damage. It can also be played as the Slayer Ascendancy, giving you an option to easily transition into Flicker Strike once you generate enough currency. The Flame Wall is a great league starting skill that applies a debuff that deals fire damage, but it is not an ignite, so it can't be avoided or reduced by ignite-resistant enemies or map modifiers. It scales with spell damage, so you can use the Pain Attunement Keystone or Controlled Destruction support gem to greatly improve your damage, which is not possible for the usual ignite counterpart. You can cast the Flame Wall directly on top of your enemies, or spread its debuff via any projectile that passes through it. The best choice for that is the Ball Lightning, as it has infinite pierce, and can also apply the powerful shock thanks to the Shaper of Storms and investing in a non-damaging ailment effect. The Hit Potion is not relevant for your damage, meaning it will ignore the proximity shields, which is the bane of the not-so-tanky builds. You will be immune to Elemental Reflect thanks to the Bastion of Elements from the Elementalist Ascendancy, but you can also take the Shaper of Winter to slow down your enemies with Chill. And the Reflect won't be a problem as you can use a low-level Ball Lightning gem to spread the Flame Wall debuff anyway. It is hard to push the damage over 10 millions even on a higher budget, but it is good enough to effortlessly clear the Atlas and obtain Void Stones. And if you are interested mostly in killing bosses or running invitations, then the Saboteur Trapper is the right choice for you. The Explosive Trap is a very strong trap skill that can be built around in various ways. The transfigured Explosive Trap of Shrapnel is a direct upgrade over its regular version, but the original variant can be used for the majority of content just as well. By increasing the area of effect, you will not only improve your clear speed, but also make the overlaps more likely, so the boss damage will rise too. The Trapper playstyle has many benefits that make it particularly attractive for a league start. It can easily deal with every map modifier, has great damage output even on a lower budget, and excels at boss fights that are required to unlock Void Stones. It is also a surprisingly durable setup. You will have the permanent Blind Aura and its additional damage mitigation, high chance to suppress spell damage, and solid life regeneration. All of them will make diving right into packs of monsters very comfortable. You can also choose the Assassin Ascendancy for pure damage, or Trickster for its defensive capabilities, but the Saboteur is recommended as it provides the healthy mix of them both. The Absolution is simply the better version of the Stormcall skill, as you don't have to play around its duration. Starting with a transfigured gem may be troublesome, but the Absolution of Inspiring should be cheap and is not even that important during the campaign. This version of Absolution improves the self-cast portion of this skill by allowing you to benefit from increases to minion damage at the greatly increased ratio, even more so after the update. We plan to combine it with the Black Cane and Phantasms for increased minion damage and additional minions that add a flat amount of physical damage to your spells, later converted to lightning by the Absolution. It may seem complex, but the gameplay is anything but that. It's a simple spellcaster that makes use of a niche gimmick in Inquisitor's powerful passives. The Black Cane is a 1C unique, and the guide we've prepared contains similarly priced items. Obviously, you can greatly improve it with more powerful unique and rare items later on, but this setup provides all you need to conquer the Atlas. The Awakened Spell Cascade is also very impactful, but you don't need it right from the start. Spell Totem with the Hierophant Ascendancy is a great way to quickly reach tier 16 maps. It's a simple way of casting spells by proxy that's very safe and efficient. Totems automatically aim at the enemy, taking the aggro, and leaving your character to do all the other important errands, like dodging attacks or applying curses. It's a safe playstyle favored by a big portion of the player base. Our pick is the Shockwave Totem. It can be troublesome to clear maps with this skill if you don't have the Astral Projector Ring, but as you can see on the showcase it is still doable. Moreover, it more than makes up for it during boss fights, as its damage is very high since you don't have to use the spell totem support, which puts a drastic penalty on your spell of choice and locks you to a specific unique armor. Hierophant is the natural pick for this archetype. It has the Pursuit of Faith and Ritual of Awakening passives which are tailored to suit this build like a glove, providing you with tons of damage and resource regeneration. The totem playstyle is quite specific, so make sure you are fine with it before you sink hours into your character. The Corrupting Cry Support Gem is a very powerful way to apply stacks of bleeding debuff on your enemies. The change to Call to Arms Keystone is rather unfortunate, but casting it manually grants you more control over your positioning, which can be very important in non-favorable map layouts. In return, you will gain a considerably lower cooldown on your General's Cry, and you can lower it further with the return of tattoos. At later stages you might consider using the new Support Gem to automate your war cry during clearing, bringing back the original playstyle, but it probably won't be possible during early stages of progression. Corrupting Blood is a very powerful type of debuff, as it is very rarely resisted by enemies. You will fear no map modifiers, making your Atlas progression very smooth. The single target is not that great, you will have to use Reap to supplement it against bosses. This build can be played as an Ascendant or Champion, but we recommend the Scion variant as it grants you much better movement speed and flask uptime, which is very important for builds without access to good movement skills. The Necropolis League brings many great changes to endgame systems, but not that many in the balance department. With a few exceptions such as the Penance brand of Dissipation, most builds from the previous league should be just as good as they were months ago. The biggest change involves Archmage support. It will most probably be a very strong archetype, but the early economy might be highly unfavorable due to the high expectations of the player base. The core unique items or good rares that involve mana might be not as easy to acquire as they usually are, so we wouldn't recommend it if you are not familiar with that playstyle or crafting system. As always, basically all the builds mentioned here are described in full detail on our website and in their video counterparts. Our build guides will help you understand the purpose and inner workings of each element implemented, explain the leveling process step by step, and suggest minor changes if the build allows for any adjustments. If you enjoy this type of content, subscribe to our YouTube channel as we often cover the hot new popular builds as well as some niche and interesting ones you might find of interest. And don't hesitate to suggest the topics you'd like us to cover, leave feedback to let us know how's the work, or help us improve our presentation formula. Regardless of which build you pick, we wish you a successful league and hope for tons of fun. Have a great day, and see you next time.